Let's check out our video for today's part of Scripture.
Israel had enemies from other nations. One of their enemies were the Ammonites. Nahash was a leader of the Ammonite army. He and his soldiers surrounded a town in Israel named Jabesh-Gilead. Nahash threatened to hurt the people of Jabesh-Gilead if they did not surrender to him. The elders of Jabesh-Gilead sent messengers throughout Israel to ask for help to defend their city. When Saul heard the people needed help, the Spirit of God came powerfully on him, and Saul was angry. He gathered a large army and came and defeated Nahash and all his soldiers. All the people were glad Saul was king. And Samuel gave a final speech to all of Israel. He said, "Here is the king you have chosen. If you fear the Lord, worship and obey him, and don't rebel against his commandments. Then both you and your king will follow the Lord. However, if you disobey the Lord, his hand will be against you, just as it was against your ancestors. Worship the Lord with all your heart, and do not turn away from him. He will not abandon his people." Then the Philistines gathered to fight against Israel. So Saul summoned all his troops to join him at Gilgal. He waited 7 days from the scheduled time that Samuel had set, but Samuel had not arrived. Saul's troops began to leave him because they were afraid. So Saul said, "Bring me the burnt offering and the fellowship offerings." Then he offered the burnt offering. As soon as Saul finished making the burnt offering, Samuel arrived and said, "What have you done?" Saul answered, "When I saw that the troops were leaving and you had not come at the scheduled time, I forced myself to make the burnt offering." Samuel said, "You have been foolish. You have not kept the command the Lord gave you. Your family would have reigned over Israel forever. But now God has found another leader, a man after his own heart. He will rule over the people because you have not done what the Lord commanded." Then Samuel left him. Saul defeated enemy armies for Israel, but failed to obey God. Jesus defeated our greatest enemies, sin and death, and always obeyed God. All who trust in Jesus will be saved and receive changed hearts that desire to obey God.
I'd like you to think about this morning some things that make you scared or afraid or maybe nervous or worried. And those types of things, they tend to change over time. When you're younger, I can remember being scared of the dark or scared of maybe what was under my bed with my imagination, or I was scared of being alone or scared of a really loud storm. Sometimes we get pretty scary storms here in Florida in the summertime. But as you get older, your fears and worries start to shift or grow into maybe some bigger worries in life. I tell you what, there are very few worries that I have that were bigger than when I held my daughter in my arms for the very first time, that I wouldn't mess this little thing up, right? We can worry and be afraid of a lot of different things. It's so easy also to give our whole heart to a lot of different things, or maybe a lot of different people. Now, in our text today, we learned about a king named Saul. And Saul, as a good Jewish boy, grew up and became a tall and strong man who then became king. But from a very young age, Saul understood that the best and most important thing in life was to love the Lord your God with your entire being, your whole self, to love God. Now, as an early king, Saul was pretty impressive. He was conquering nations left and right for God. He was faithful. He was obedient. He was morally good. He made good decisions. But then towards the end, Saul came up against a pretty scary situation where the armies against him were massive, and he was told to wait until Samuel could arrive and do an offering to God before they would engage in battle. And as they waited and waited, Saul's army started leaving. And he gets nervous and he panics. And in that panic, he does the sacrifice himself, not waiting for Samuel. He does what God told him not to do. And Samuel arrives and says, Saul, what are you doing? Why are you disobeying God? You had it set. You were going to be king. Your sons would be kings. Your whole family would have sat on the throne for ages. But now God has picked somebody else because you've been disobedient. Now, if we fast forward, we know that the next king is David, and we're going to talk about King David a lot in the weeks to come. But for those of you who don't know, David was an amazing king, but he had a pretty huge bad mistake. And what's interesting is, as a result of that really bad mistake, God didn't remove David from the throne and bring someone new in. And here's why. Because God doesn't measure you on whether or not you make mistakes. He measures the heart that you have. And David was somebody who was a man after God's own heart. David loved God with all his being, his entire self, his mind, his heart, his strength, all of it. Saul was afraid. And he didn't have that same love for God. Putting God first. Paul panics and disobeys. David wasn't perfect, but he loved and trusted God. To love, to deeply love God with your whole self, means that you make sure that He is number one in your life. And earlier I said it's so easy to put other people or things above that. And here's how you know, when you start to get worried that you're going to lose something that's so important to you, that has now become an idol in your life. And idols can take the form of your career, it can take the form of your family and loved ones. Parents, it is so easy for us to turn our children into our idols. And when you have an idol, your security, your happiness is based on the happiness and security of your idol. And when that becomes challenged or threatened and you feel fear, then it's a good reminder to have a heart more like David, that you are after God's own heart, that you love the Lord your God with your entire being, your body, mind, soul, everything. One time Jesus told his disciples, if you love me, you will keep my commands. If you want to show your love to God, then do what He has commanded you to do. Now, when we have confirmation students and adult education classes and we talk about the 10 Commandments, God's basic rules, it sounds like a whole lot of things what not to do, right? Thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not. So if you just avoid doing all of those things, you'll be okay. But not exactly. Because not only are you supposed to not do those things, you're supposed to do something else. For the first commandment, we're supposed to put nothing else in front of God, but that means we're also supposed to put God number one in our life, that we fear, love, and trust in Him above all things. The second commandment, we're not supposed to use God's name in vain, but we are supposed to use it because it is the name that is above all names. It is the powerfulest name. Powerfulest name? You can say that. You can say that. It is the powerfulest name that we are to use in prayer and praise and thanksgiving. The name of God, moms and dads, the name of God needs to be on your lips every single day. Let your children hear it. The third commandment, we're to remember the Sabbath day. That means we are to take daily rest, to connect with Jesus, to find that soul rest, the grace and mercy that washes over us and makes us new and refreshed each and every day, to gather together as a group like this, to worship as families together. The fourth commandment, the parent's favorite, to honor your mother and father. Right, which also means that we are not just to honor our moms and our dads, but we are to honor everybody that God puts in authority in our lives. Because we recognize that that authority isn't theirs, but it comes from Him. And when we honor their authority, we're honoring God's authority. Fifth commandment, thou shalt not murder. But it also means that we are supposed to help our neighbors with all of their physical needs. To care for them, to look out for them, to protect them. Food, shelter, help. The sixth commandment, that we're not supposed to misuse sex, no adultery, but we are supposed to cherish the gift that God has given with that. and the closeness and the intimacy that that can provide within a marriage. The seventh commandment, we're not supposed to steal, but we are supposed to help our neighbor keep their stuff. And the eighth commandment, this is a tough one. Not bear false witness, but what that means is when you talk about other people, let it be positive. Let the words that come out of your mouth be positive when you talk about others. And the ninth and the 10th commandment has everything to do with contentment. That's the you shall not covet. But what you should do is be content with what God has given you. Don't compare with one another. And when you do these things, you are showing your love to God. A long, long time ago, I had a day off, and I loved on my days off to play college football and PlayStation and cook food and eat food. That was my ideal day off, and I was nailing it this day. I was nailing it. I was having the best day off that I'd had in months. And my wife, she came home from a really difficult, draining day at her job, which is super taxing, exhausting, and you can tell she's come home and she is just fatigued. She's just spent. And I can tell what she really needs now is extra love. So I get off the sofa and I look at my beautifully exhausted wife and I say, Sarah, I love you. And Sarah looks at me with desperation and looks at the kitchen with the dishes that are spilling out of it. And she said to me, don't tell me, show me. Right, God does love to hear that you love him, but show him. Keep his commands. And the reality is we can do okay until we don't. And we make a mistake, and we don't do what we're supposed to do, and we do what we're not supposed to do. And in those moments, it's important to remember that as much as God wants us to have a heart for him, to love him with our whole selves, he loves us first with his whole self. So much so that he sent his only son to trade places with you for the punishment that we deserve. To take that to the cross and pay it in full. His body, mind, soul, Jesus died out of his great love for you, that he loved you with his whole self. And as he rises again on Easter Sunday, he fills us with that hope that we too will share in that resurrection in the end. Out of his great love for us, that even when we make mistakes and fall short, he is right there to catch us, forgive us, and make us new.